Meet Daniel. Daniel lives in a four-bedroom house in a quiet suburb of Atlanta. The lawn is immaculate. There is a black BMW 5 Series in the driveway, freshly washed, and a second car, a white Audi Q5, parked just beside it. Walk through the front door and you see high ceilings, a leather sectional that cost $4,000, a kitchen with quartz countertops and stainless steel appliances upgraded 2 years ago, even though the old ones worked perfectly fine. The walls have art on them. Not because Daniel loves art, but because bare walls felt cheap. Daniel earns $140,000 a year in corporate sales. By every visible measure, he is doing well. He looks like success. He feels like success, most of the time, until the end of the month when the credit card statements arrive and something quiet and nameless settles in his chest. And he closes the app, puts his phone face down on the counter, and goes to pour himself another drink. Now meet Kevin. Kevin lives 20 minutes away in a two-bedroom apartment he rents. The furniture is mismatched, a couch bought used, a dining table from a Facebook marketplace listing 3 years ago, one car in the parking lot outside, a 2017 Honda Civic with a small scratch on the passenger door he never bothered to fix. Kevin earns $78,000 a year doing IT support. His apartment is unremarkable, but on Sunday mornings he makes coffee at home, sits by the window, opens a book, and feels, in a way he could not fully explain to anyone, like a man who is exactly where he is supposed to be. Daniel has $11,000 in savings. He carries $9,000 in credit card debt rotating across 3 cards. His monthly expenses total just under $10,000. He contributes 3% to his 401k because that is what gets the employer match, and he has not changed that number in 4 years. His net worth, everything he owns minus everything he owes, is negative $12,000. He is 41 years old. By the most precise financial definition available, he is losing. Kevin has $94,000 in a brokerage account, $18,000 in a high-yield savings account as his emergency fund. He maxes his Roth IRA every year without exception and contributes 15% of his income to his retirement plan. Monthly expenses, $3,200. He invests over $2,000 every single month, quietly, invisibly, without a single person around him knowing. His net worth at 38 is $210,000 and climbing. Nobody at his job knows. None of his neighbors know. His life does not announce itself. It simply builds. Same city, similar schools, similar costs of living. The difference between these two lives is not income, not intelligence, not discipline in the way most people mean the word. The difference is that Daniel has been paying a tax with no line on any government form, that is more expensive than almost anything else a person can pay. And Kevin, either through hard-won clarity or fortunate temperament, simply refuses to pay it. Here is what that tax actually is. The single greatest destroyer of middle-class wealth in the modern era is not overspending. It is the specific, socially motivated spending that happens when people use money not to acquire things they genuinely want, but to communicate who they are to the people around them. It is not consumption. It is performance. And the audience for that performance is costing most people their entire financial future. To understand why intelligent, capable people like Daniel end up at 41 with a negative net worth while earning salaries that should have built genuine security, you need to understand a concept called positional consumption. Not the surface definition, the full architecture of it. Because once you see it completely, you cannot unsee it, and you will find it everywhere in your own life. Positional consumption is not spending driven by usefulness. It is not even spending driven by genuine pleasure. It is spending driven by rank. The purchase of objects, experiences, and appearances for the primary purpose of communicating social position, signaling that you belong to a certain tier, that you have not fallen behind. And the critical thing to understand is that the value of the thing purchased is not intrinsic. It exists entirely in relation to what other people have. A car does not signal wealth in a vacuum. It signals wealth relative to your neighbor's car. A kitchen renovation does not feel urgent until you visit someone with a nicer kitchen. The desire is not generated from within. It is generated from comparison. Now here is the layer most people never reach. Positional consumption is not a character flaw. It is not vanity or weakness or poor judgment. It is a deeply wired evolutionary response that kept human beings alive for hundreds of thousands of years. In a tribal environment, your social rank determined your access to food, to protection, to mates, to survival itself. Monitoring your position relative to others and working to defend or improve it was not vanity. It was the difference between living and dying. The brain systems that generate anxiety when you feel socially behind, that generate the impulse to acquire visible markers of status. Those systems are ancient. They are fast. They operate almost entirely below conscious awareness. And in the world you live in today, they have been handed a credit card. In a tribal village of 150 people, your reference group was fixed. You compared yourself to the 149 people you actually knew. The feedback was honest, limited, and real. But today your reference group is unlimited and almost entirely curated for maximum impact. Instagram shows you the highlight reel of 10,000 strangers. LinkedIn is a parade of promotions and achievements stripped of every failure and struggle that surrounded them. The people you went to school with post photos of renovations, vacations, and vehicles. And your ancient brain processes every one of those images exactly the way it would have processed a tribal rival displaying a larger shelter. It registers as a gap. It registers as threat. And it generates pressure, not conscious pressure, but felt pressure, body-level pressure, to close that gap with something visible. Something that says I am not behind. Daniel does not sit down each month and think, I am going to spend money to signal my status. That is not how this works. It works through the feeling that certain things are simply what people at his level do. People in his income bracket live in certain neighborhoods, drive certain cars, maintain certain appearances. These do not feel like status calculations. They feel like standards. They feel like what a responsible adult earning this kind of money is simply supposed to maintain. And every time Daniel meets one of those standards, the standard moves. Because the reference group is always moving. The comparison engine never rests. This is what makes positional consumption financially lethal. It is self-defeating by design. The moment you acquire the thing that was supposed to close the gap shifts. A new car delivers the feeling of status for approximately 6 months before it becomes the new baseline and something slightly better becomes the signal. The hedonic adaptation is ruthless. There is no level of acquisition at which the brain declares, we have arrived. We are enough. We can stop. The goalpost is not a thing. It is a relationship to others, and others are always moving forward. Now sit with this number for a moment, because this is where the true cost becomes impossible to ignore. Daniel's BMW payment is $780 a month. At 7% annual return, the long-run historical average of a diversified stock market index, investing that amount every month for 20 years produces just over $408,000. He is not paying for a car. He is paying for the feeling of a car. And what that feeling actually costs him is not $9,000 a year. It is $400,000 of future wealth, compounding silently in the background of a life he will never live. Every dollar that funds the performance is a dollar that will never build the freedom. That is the exchange Daniel is making. That is the exchange most people are making. And almost nobody has ever said it to them that plainly. So what do you actually do about it? Not in theory, in practice. In the specific moments when the pressure arrives and the ancient machinery starts running. There are 3 interventions that work, not because they are clever financial tricks, but because they target the actual psychological mechanism rather than its symptoms. The first is to deliberately rebuild your reference group. Your brain will always compare. That will not change. But you have far more control than you realize over what it compares to. If your daily inputs are social feeds filled with visible consumption, renovations, luxury travel, new purchases displayed for social approval, your internal baseline rises constantly, invisibly, and without your permission. Kevin's reference group is not his coworkers or his neighborhood or his Instagram feed. His reference group is his future self. The comparison that motivates him is between his current net worth and the number he knows he needs to reach to have genuine freedom. That single reorientation generates completely different daily decisions. Audit what you consume, not just what you buy, but what you watch, who you follow, whose life your brain is using as its unconscious measuring stick. Your reference group is either working for your wealth or against it. There is no neutral position. The second is to make your real wealth visible to yourself with the same immediacy that your status purchases are visible to others. This matters more than it sounds. because the brain under social pressure will always default to prioritizing what it can see and touch. The status signals Daniel buys are visible, present, and tangible. The compounding Kevin is building is invisible, abstract, and deferred. The brain is not naturally equipped to feel the value of invisible future wealth the way it feels the immediate signal of a new car in the driveway. So you manufacture that visibility deliberately. A net worth tracker updated every month. A portfolio chart as your phone's home screen. A single number written somewhere you see it daily, representing your invested assets and the freedom they represent. These are not motivational gimmicks. They are a competing signal, something concrete for the comparison machinery to measure and respond to, pointed in the right direction instead of at your neighbor's driveway. The third is a pause. Research on status-driven and impulse spending consistently shows that the urge is most powerful at the moment of first exposure and declines meaningfully with even a small time delay. Not because you forget the desire, but because the rational brain needs runway to catch the emotional one. A 48-hour rule for any unplanned purchase above a threshold you choose, whether that is $100 or $500, is not deprivation. It is a window. A window just wide enough to ask the question Kevin's brain asks almost automatically. Not is this appropriate for someone at my level, but does this purchase move me toward the life I actually want, or toward the life that looks correct from the outside? Those are not the same life. And the 48 hours reveals, with remarkable consistency, which one you are actually choosing. Now look 10 years forward. If nothing changes, Daniel will be 51 with a lifestyle that still reads as success from the street and a financial structure that is one serious disruption away from collapse. One job loss, one medical event, one extended period of unemployment. The entire architecture falls because it was never built on wealth. It was built on income. And income is a river, not a reservoir. The moment the river slows, there is nothing stored behind it. Kevin at 48, with consistent and modest growth, will have a portfolio approaching $700,000. More importantly than the number, he will have options that money cannot be reduced to. He will be able to leave a job that no longer serves him without panic. He will be able to absorb a crisis without catastrophe. He will be able to give generously, move freely, and choose deliberately, because his life is funded by accumulated wealth rather than dependent on next month's paycheck. He will not be rich in the loose, careless way that word is thrown around. He will be free in the precise, irreversible way that word actually means. And freedom is the only form of wealth that cannot be repossessed. Daniel is not a cautionary tale about a bad person. He is a precise portrait of a capable person operating on the default settings of a consumer economy that was engineered with extraordinary sophistication to convert your evolutionary wiring into someone else's quarterly revenue. The modern marketplace did not create positional consumption. It simply learned to weaponize it, to make you feel the gap constantly, to make every upgrade feel like a baseline, to make the performance feel like identity, so that when someone suggests you examine your spending, it feels like an attack on who you are rather than an observation about what you are doing. That is not an accident. That is a business model. But Kevin's story exists in the same economy, under the same pressures, exposed to the same signals. He is not living in a different world. He is living in the same world with a different internal scorecard. He chose, consciously or by disposition, to perform for an audience of one, his future self. And that future self, 10 years from now, will be waiting for him with 200 days of unstructured time, a paid-off life, and the quiet dignity of a man who built something real while everyone around him built something visible. The scoreboard that matters was never visible from the street. It never is. And the only question worth sitting with tonight, not tomorrow, tonight, is which scoreboard you have been playing to. Because you have been playing to one of them this whole time. You just may not have known it was a choice. Now you do.